In the summer of 1998, audiences descended into a world where vampires danced under strobes of neon red blood, swords sliced through unborn prophecies, and the very notion of a superhero got recast in the midnight noir of the club scene. Enter Blade, not your standard caped crusader, but a half-vampire, half-human daywalker whose mission was darker, grittier, and altogether stranger than most comic book fare. With a budget modest by today's standards and a visceral R rating that signaled this is not for kids, Blade quietly shifted the superhero genre. It opened August 21, 1998 and went on to earn about $70 million domestically and $131.2 million worldwide. Critics were mixed. On the review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds a tomato meter score of 59% based on roughly 113 reviews. But for many fans and genre historians, Blade did something far bigger. It proved an R-rated comic book movie could make box office, carry its own aesthetic, and plant seeds for what we now call the modern superhero era. With that in mind, let's plunge into 25 of the most strange, behind-the-scenes, and surprising facts about Blade, starting with the top 5.
Freeze! Motherfucker, are you out of your damn mind?
Fact 1. Saved Marvel. Blade was Marvel's first successful film and is widely credited for saving the company from potential bankruptcy and kickstarting the modern era of superhero movies. At a time when the superhero movie looked like a dying idea, especially after flops like Steel and The Phantom, Blade arrived and made money. It changed minds in the industry that comics-based films could be viable. The fact that Marvel licensed Blade, not yet its own full cinematic powerhouse, meant this success echoed beyond just one film. Because of its financial performance, studios took note. Edgy, adult-toned superhero films could work. Suddenly the landscape tilted. Darker heroes, edgier narratives, and more cinematic ambition in comic adaptations became possible. In that sense, Blade wasn't just a vampire action film. It was a milestone. Fact 2. Improvised catchphrase. Blade's iconic line,
"Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill,"
was an offhand comment Wesley Snipes made in an early story meeting that writer David S. Goyer loved and put into the script. When you hear Blade utter that one-liner, there's something about the cadence and the metaphor that stands out. It wasn't originally in the script. It came from Snipes during a story session as an exasperated metaphor for the uphill fight he faces. Goyer liked the image so much he built a version of the line into the screenplay. The result: a line that resonates, sits in the memory, and encapsulates Blade's struggle, not just with vampires, but with the broader war he fights. It's a small detail, but one that gives the character texture and attitude. Fact 3. Alternate ending. The original ending featured Deacon Frost turning into La Magra, a large, swirling mass of blood, but it was scraped after disastrous test screenings because the special effects looked bad. In the earliest cut of Blade, the final showdown would crescendo with Frost's transformation into the blood god La Magra in a massive CGI bloodstorm. That version ended up being too surreal, and reportedly too poorly rendered, for test audiences. According to the film's Wikipedia page, the original 140-minute cut featured this ending. When the filmmakers saw how the ending landed, and how the effects looked, they opted to reshoot and replace it with a more grounded sword fight finale. We'll talk about that in the next fact. The oddity here is, a major character completely transforms into a puddle of swirling blood in the original vision, then gets reworked almost entirely. The weird what-if version lingers on as DVD extras, a reminder of how wild the original plan was. Fact 4. The final fight was added later. The now iconic final sword fight between Blade and Deacon Frost was not in the original cut of the film and was added during extensive reshoots. Because the original ending didn't test well, the filmmakers went back into production. The result? A final duel in the Blade-lit temple setting between Blade's katana and Frost's ritual power. This reshoot stretched production, delayed release by months, and changed the tone of the climax significantly. What's strange about this? Increasingly, we think of the final fight as the Blade final fight. It defines the film's visual identity. But it didn't exist at first. The moment we remember as climactic is really a late-cut addition. That means the version we know is partly a second wind, a rescue of the film's ending, and speaks to how production turbulence sometimes reshapes movie legacies. Fact 5. Stan Lee cameo cut. Stan Lee filmed a cameo as a cop who discovers Quinn's body on fire in the Blood Club aftermath, but the scene was ultimately cut from the movie. It's always fun when the Marvel legend appears in a film, but in Blade's case, his cameo didn't make the final cut. Lee shot a scene where he plays a police officer investigating the aftermath of the club massacre, where Quinn is found engulfed in flame. That scene was cut for pacing reasons and never appears in the theatrical release. The odd fact here is, you might expect a cameo by Stan Lee to survive, but in this case it didn't. That makes it an unusual footnote, a what could have been moment, and a reminder that even small cameo appearances aren't guaranteed when the edit room rears its scissors. So there you have the first 5. High on weirdness, full of behind-the-scenes insight, and just scratching the surface of what makes Blade such a fascinating film to revisit. The deeper we go, the stranger it gets. Hidden details, unfilmed horrors, and creative risks that shaped one of the boldest comic book adaptations ever made. Fact 6. Director's cameo. Stephen Norrington appears in the film as a vampire biting a girl on the roadside during a chase scene. While his temperament on set was infamous, director Stephen Norrington couldn't resist slipping himself into the shadows of his own movie. In a blink and you'll miss it moment during one of the chase scenes, he plays a vampire feeding on a woman by the side of the road. It's a fitting cameo for a filmmaker who brought a gothic, punk sensibility to the superhero genre. The cameo wasn't random. Norrington had a background in special effects and creature design, and he was obsessed with texture, light, and physicality, traits that defined Blade's look. His presence in that grim, nocturnal moment adds an eerie stamp of authorship, as though the director literally feeds off his own creation. A strange meta touch from a man who later swore off Hollywood after his frustrating experience on The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Fact 7. Wesley Snipes tattoos. The intricate tattoos covering Blade's body were actually drawn by director Stephen Norrington himself. Norrington wasn't just a director, he was a visual artist and creature designer before his filmmaking days. According to production sources and cast interviews, the tattoos we see inked across Blade's chest and shoulders were hand-drawn by Norrington. He designed them to resemble ancient runic and tribal patterns that symbolized Blade's hybrid identity, part human, part vampire. It's one of those strange facts that gets overlooked. The film's visual signature, those mysterious markings that make Blade feel like a mythic warrior, literally came from the director's hand. The detail reinforces how Blade blended martial arts sleekness with dark mysticism, and how much of that look came from Norrington's personal eye rather than corporate design boards. Fact 8. Donal Logue's re-injured jaw. During the hospital fight scene, actor Donal Logue, Quinn, fell and dislodged his jaw, which he had previously broken in a motorcycle accident years earlier. In one of the most intense hospital scenes, where Blade torches Quinn yet again, chaos spilled into real life. Donal Logue, who played the wisecracking vampire henchman, slipped during a stunt, fell badly, and re-injured a jaw he'd fractured years earlier in a motorcycle crash. The production had to rush him to an actual hospital, still covered in his gruesome prosthetic burns and makeup. Doctors reportedly did a double take when he arrived looking like a man fresh out of a horror scene. The makeup was so convincing that people initially thought the injuries were real. That incident added to Blade's already demanding shoot schedule and became part of its legend, another reminder that the boundary between stunt and reality sometimes blurs in the pursuit of cinematic spectacle. Fact 9. The deleted scenes that never made it, and the real disturbing detail. Fans often talk about wild deleted scenes from Blade, but some of the internet's favorite rumors aren't real. There was no scene of Karen Jensen finding a hybrid vampire infant in Blade's hideout. That never existed. The actual deleted moments were very different. In one, Karen wakes up at Blade's lair and quietly explores, looking at his weapons and her medical files. Another disturbing script detail, never filmed, revealed that the obese vampire Pearl had grown fat by eating children, whose corpses littered his chamber, a line so gruesome it was cut immediately. The only deleted sequence that survived into production involved the blood bags, humans being kept alive for harvesting if vampires ruled the world. You can even glimpse these blood bags in the background of the Frost compound scene. It's these dark, grounded horrors, not fantasy hybrids, that give Blade's world its chilling realism. Fact 10. Quinn's expanded role. Donal Logue was so funny and quick at ad-libbing on set that his character's role was expanded significantly from the original script. Originally, Quinn was little more than a disposable vampire goon meant to die early, but Donal Logue's sharp comedic timing and his chemistry with both Wesley Snipes and Stephen Dorff led the filmmakers to expand his screen time and keep bringing him back, often charred, half regrown, and even funnier in his pain. Many of his lines were improvised, such as his sarcastic quips when regenerating limbs or mocking Blade mid-fight. This improvisational energy became a hallmark of Blade's tone, balancing the grim seriousness of its world with flashes of absurd humor. Quinn's recurring appearances made the film more memorable and gave fans a villain to both hate and enjoy watching. In many ways, his survival through multiple burnings became a running gag, a weirdly endearing side effect of an actor being too good to kill off. By this point in Blade's production, the film had found its rhythm, a razor-sharp blend of martial arts precision, gothic horror, and sardonic humor. But the strangeness didn't stop there. Behind every fight, casting choice, and camera angle, there were risks, rewrites, and wild creative decisions that pushed this film from cult action flick to cinematic legend. Fact 11. Whistler was created for the film, and debuted in a cartoon first. The story of Blade's mentor, Abraham Whistler, is one of the strangest origin twists in Marvel history. Screenwriter David S. Goyer created Whistler specifically for his Blade film script, a grizzled weapons expert who replaced Blade's original comic mentor, a black jazz musician named Jamal Afari. Marvel loved the idea so much they borrowed it before the movie even came out. Whistler first appeared publicly in Spider-Man, the animated series, in 1995's episode Blade, the Vampire Hunter. His popularity there cemented his place in the Blade films, played perfectly by Chris Christopherson. Whistler eventually entered Marvel comic continuity in 2002, proof that sometimes the movies shape the mythology, not the other way around. Fact 12. Wesley Snipes originally wanted to play Black Panther. Before Blade, Snipes had long been lobbying Marvel to make a Black Panther film, even meeting with studio heads in the early 90s. When that stalled, Blade became the next best vehicle. Another black hero, but one rooted in darkness and vengeance. Ironically, Snipes' success as Blade helped prove that an all-black superhero movie could thrive, paving the way for Black Panther 20 years later. Fact 13. Jet Li turned down the role of Deacon Frost. Before Stephen Dorff was cast, the production offered the villain role of Deacon Frost to martial arts star Jet Li. He declined to star in Lethal Weapon 4 instead. It's fascinating to imagine how the film's tone might have shifted. Li's silent intensity could have made Frost far more menacing. Instead, Dorff's youthful arrogance gave the movie a sleeker, club-era edge that felt perfectly 90s.
Can't tell you, they'll kill me.
Kill you, motherfucker, I'll kill you. I'll just enjoy it better.
Fact 14. The studio originally wanted a white Blade. When Blade was first pitched, New Line executives reportedly asked if the lead character could be made white to appeal to a broader market. Screenwriter Goyer and producers flat out refused. Their decision to cast Wesley Snipes changed superhero cinema forever. He brought style, swagger, and credibility, proving that an unapologetically black lead could anchor a global blockbuster. Fact 15. Fake subway passengers, made of cardboard. During the subway chase scene, most of the passengers visible through the windows were actually cardboard cutouts. Real extras were too expensive for multiple takes, and the crew had to improvise. This low-tech hack worked so well that audiences never noticed. It's one of those strange, scrappy moments that reminds you Blade was shot on a tight budget, but with plenty of creative problem solving. The deeper we go, the weirder it gets. From animated origins to cardboard commuters, Blade thrived on bold decisions, clever improvisation, and pure creative instinct. Each new discovery reveals just how much risk and rebellion fueled this dark masterpiece, and how one sword-swinging anti-hero changed the DNA of action cinema forever. Fact 16. The meaning behind La Magra. In Blade, Deacon Frost's goal is to awaken La Magra, the vampire blood god. The phrase sounds ancient, but it's actually Spanish and Italian for the Thin One. That's ironic considering the being is envisioned as a massive, world-consuming entity. Fans have long speculated that the name was chosen simply because it sounded mystical, a reminder that even mythic horror sometimes starts with a bit of linguistic improvisation. Fact 17. Whistler originally couldn't read the vampire language. In early drafts, Whistler wasn't supposed to understand the ancient vampire script. Blade would have needed help from a voodoo priestess who could translate it. This subplot was dropped for pacing, but it shows how much mystical lore Goyer originally intended to explore. It also hints that Blade's universe was meant to be far bigger, blending witchcraft, mythology, and urban war long before the MCU embraced that tone. Fact 18. The Chin Chin Song, and its strange translation. The track that plays in Deacon Frost's penthouse, the one by Japanese girl group Bang Wa Cherry, is titled Chin Chin. In Japanese slang, the word means penis. The producers reportedly had no idea about the double meaning until after the soundtrack was finalized. It became a hidden inside joke for bilingual fans, one of the strangest Easter eggs in a major action film of the 90s. Fact 19. Tracy Lord's cameo, a symbol of the film's edge. The seductive vampire Raquel who lures a man into the blood rave is played by former adult film star Tracy Lords. Her inclusion was deliberate. The filmmakers wanted an opening scene that instantly told audiences this isn't your typical Marvel movie. Lord's presence, equal parts taboo and nostalgia, set the tone. It captured the film's hybrid DNA. Horror meets comic book meets nightclub culture, all pulsing to that thumping soundtrack. Fact 20. Director chaos behind the scenes. Producer Robert Engelman later described working with director Stephen Norrington as an unbelievable nightmare. Norrington's perfectionism, intensity, and short temper often clashed with the crew, creating a tense atmosphere throughout production. Still, Engelman admitted that Norrington's visual genius gave Blade its distinctive identity. His mastery of light, shadow, and metallic texture turned a modest-budget movie into a gothic, operatic experience. That strange duality, chaos behind the camera, clarity on screen, is part of what made Blade unforgettable. With tempers flaring, symbols mistranslated, and blood gods lost in linguistic irony, Blade was equal parts genius and madness. But the story gets even stranger. What came next revealed how critics really reacted, how audiences turned skepticism into cult devotion, and how this R-rated gamble became one of the most influential genre films of its time. Fact 21. Vampires predate crosses, a bold twist on lore. Most vampire films treat crosses as kryptonite. Blade turned that trope upside down. Early in the movie, Whistler explains that vampires predate the Christian cross, which explains why crucifixes don't do squat. This wasn't just a cool line, it reframed centuries of vampire mythology. Instead of religious creatures cursed by God, Blade's vampires became biological predators, ancient and evolutionary. A strange but genius move that gave the movie its modern, science meets superstition feel. Fact 22. Wesley Snipes' silence, part style, part circumstance. It's often said that Blade's quiet, stoic nature was a deliberate choice by Wesley Snipes, and that's partly true. For the first film, Snipes embraced minimal dialogue to give the Daywalker an aura of control and mystery. The film itself also featured fewer lines for Blade, emphasizing presence over chatter and letting his physicality do the talking. In later sequels, though, the silence became complicated. On Blade Trinity, on-set tensions between Snipes and director David S. Goyer led to communication breakdowns, spawning rumors that Snipes refused to speak to the crew and sometimes stayed in character between takes. Snipes has since pushed back on those claims, crediting the franchise's success to teamwork and craftsmanship. Still, that blend of discipline, myth, and behind-the-scenes friction helped define one of cinema's most enigmatic heroes. Fact 23. Blade's weapons, fictional designs built on real steel. The truth about Blade's legendary arsenal sits between myth and metal. Many of his weapons were entirely custom designed for the film, while others were clever modifications of real-world firearms. Hollywood blacksmith Tony Swatton and his team crafted the iconic Sword of the Daywalker, a straight, double-edged blade with a deadly built-in failsafe that ejects spikes if handled by the wrong person. It was a pure invention of the film's prop department, designed to look both ancient and tactical. Other weapons, like the UV grenades and flash devices, were created solely for the movie's anti-vampire lore. But Blade's guns? Those had roots in reality. His main machine pistol was based on a real Mach 11 submachine gun, modified with welded components and blank firing mechanics for cinematic style. That blend of fiction and function gave Blade its unmistakable authenticity. Every fight felt real because much of the steel was. Fact 24. The R rating that changed everything. Blade was rated R for violence and gore, a huge risk in 1998 when comic book movies were chasing teen audiences. Yet the decision worked. Its success proved that darker, adult-oriented superhero films could thrive, paving the way for Deadpool, Logan, and even The Dark Knight. This bold creative choice didn't just shape the film, it reshaped Hollywood's comfort zone. Marvel's first box office hit came from taking a risk, not playing it safe. Fact 25. Blade's hidden horror DNA. While Blade doesn't quote Evil Dead 2, its roots in horror are undeniable. Director Stephen Norrington and screenwriter David S. Goyer built the film's tone from the DNA of 80s and early 90s horror, The Thing, Near Dark, and Evil Dead among them. The film's opening blood rave sequence, practical gore, and monster design were all inspired by classic creature features. That fusion of horror and superhero storytelling was revolutionary. It gave Blade a gritty, nightmarish realism that set it apart from every comic book movie before it, and quietly redefined what superhero cinema could look like. The music fades, the blood rave drips from memory, and Blade steps back into the city where night never really ends. No speeches, no victory lap, just a warrior moving on to the next hunt. That is the power of this film. It does not wink, it does not explain, it just breathes confidence and keeps walking. Before shared universes and press tours, Blade proved that style could be story. Leather that creaks like armor, steel that sings in the air, fights that feel heavy and real. It fused horror grit with comic book myth and taught studios that bold choices can pay off, even when the lights are low and the rating is hard. Blade did not beg to be loved. It showed up, did the work, and left a mark that still shows on the genre today. Some villains try to skate uphill. The Daywalker cut the ice. Bonus fact: The Matrix connection. Blade came first, released in 1998, months before The Matrix. Both shared that sleek, black leather aesthetic and Hong Kong-inspired fight choreography. But while Blade hinted at slow-motion bullet effects, it was The Matrix that perfected the technique with its groundbreaking bullet time. In the end, Blade set the tone, and The Matrix turned it into a movement, together defining the look of late 90s action cinema.